The Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre is a unique blend of industry, government and research partners working across Australian industry with key links internationally.
Based on a partnership between Curtin University and Griffith University, underpinned by relationships with both the Queensland and the West Australian governments, as well as two industry partners, ATCO and BGC. So all of these people and their brains and their experience have provided us with a great opportunity to collaborate and share in doing this critical work.
This research project is a really important evolution of the social and affordable housing research that Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre has invested in over the last 10 years. It enables the supply of social and affordable housing at scale. This is really important to provide an avenue for people to have long-term tenure over their house over the long term, and is an important step forward for the housing product in Australia.
There's a big history with BGC in terms of building apartments to rent, and more recently, as we're surrounded by here, building apartments to sell. And this is an inner city area that was a low use land, and the framework was put in to develop it for apartments, and it's been very successful. But there's no reason why this same model and the same methodology couldn't be applied back to a build to rent if the right conditions are there for BGC to do it, or companies like ourselves.
Sunshine Coast Council, as a member of the SBENRC, is really excited to partner in this research program because it helps contribute to Council's vision to be the most sustainable region in Australia. We're hoping that this research will provide us with the evidence to identify initiatives that we need to investigate and deliver to ensure that we get more affordable and social housing here on the Sunshine Coast.
One of the biggest problems facing Australian capital cities is the provision of affordable housing, and particularly housing close to the infrastructure that we already have. There's a new innovation called the trackless tram, which comes at about 1/10 of the cost of a regular tram. What this means is we can put a lot of people very close to public transport at a relatively low cost.
We've been talking about this net zero corridors for the last 6 years, but in fact, in 2009, I think it was, that the City of Melbourne commissioned a report on this, saying that corridors were a key part in addressing housing affordability and the viability of cities. And it's only now that we're starting to realise the importance of that resource.
SNAMED stands for Spatial Network Analysis for Multimodal Urban Transport Systems, and it is a planning support tool. It is part of a family of accessibility tools that are trying to look at transport and land use within the same framework. SNAMED has been applied in 30 cities around the world, many in Europe, the 5 largest Australian cities and Auckland, 4 North American cities, now 5 North American cities and 3 Asian cities.
And what we're researching is, to what extent does policy need to acknowledge, encourage, and regulate the inclusion and the involvement and the integration across these sectors? Because within the engineering space and the built environment space, what we have is an environment where transit gets developed in one silo and housing gets developed in another silo.
Governance is an incredibly important part of this. So having a mechanism by which the public sector and the private sector are able to combine the things they do best to create really powerful outcomes. So potentially part of that comes from the way in which we choose to procure a project. So have we really thought through whether we're bringing together the infrastructure investment with the urban development outcome in the same package? Or have we at least got a mechanism that allows the two procurement processes to speak to each other successfully?
We had a symposium where we brought everybody together, people from across Australia who are actually trying to do the same thing, and it was very inspiring for me to see hundreds of people who clearly are now trying to change their cities in the same way and need our help to show them how. What is the procurement process and the governance system that will enable this to happen? And it will enable developers to build around the stations. This needs developers because they build the housing. And the housing is what we now need.
In Australia, it's estimated that our circularity rate is just 4%, which is around half the global average. And we need to work together to find solutions to that challenge and increase the use of recycled materials in all of our projects. One of the case studies used in this research project is the redevelopment of the Subiaco Oval and Perth Children's Hospital. This redevelopment achieved an enormous recycling rate of over 99% of non-hazardous materials being reused and recycled. That includes 59,000 tonnes of bricks, concrete, timber and steel. The WA State Government will use the research outcomes to increase the use of recycled materials in our projects and embed circular economy principles into our practices.
We conducted a series of case studies focusing on the role of change agency, local collaboration, and modern methods of constructions in optimized use of recycled materials.
We've had a history of delivering programs and helping out with programs that support the circular economy. One key example is the Subiaco redevelopment project. From the demolition of the Oval, the industry worked across the supply chain to supply good quality engineered product, crushed recycled concrete for road construction. We use this product as subbase under full depth asphalt, and this in fact is a legacy for Western Australia.
A project or like a program like Ecologic could respond to and address some of the barriers that were identified by the different stakeholders interviewed, and understand how a program or elements of a program such as Ecologic could be intertwined with identified strategies to increase the amount of recycled and reused materials used, and or to a broader circular economy strategy used by different organisations in infrastructure delivery. So for us, it was really interesting to understand from an interstate perspective challenges and strategies to deal with challenges around increasing the amount of recycled and reused materials more broadly.
I'd like to thank the Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre and the researchers involved in this project for successfully completing the project and delivering it to a high standard. And I'd also like to acknowledge the time and commitment of the project partners through their contribution to the project through the project steering group.
This SBE NRC project, using digitalization and AI, aims to achieve how digital technologies can be used to achieve net zero carbon emissions. The outcome will provide useful information for organizations to understand how information can be stored, retrieved, and used in the digital platform.
The LiDAR case study has improved our management of road safety barriers. By leveraging this technology, we were able to identify safety barriers that do not meet current safety and design standards. Additionally, it mitigates the need for physical inspections.
We've got over 70,000 assets throughout Queensland, and dealing with them has really opened our eyes to some newer ways and ways to digitally produce some life cycle management, which has been critical and exceptionally valuable.
The work led by SBE NRC, and in particular Pang Wu, has been exemplary, something that we all need to take on as we consider the metrics that are involved in sustainability, looking at asset development, looking at the digital twin and how it can improve government service delivery. This work will be a game changer for academics, but also for practitioners as they review it, use it and embrace the opportunities that it presents.
I'm thrilled to chair the Sustainable Procurement Project, and in this phase we're looking at the embodied carbon and specific procurement clauses. We've all agreed on the why we should do this, but sometimes there's challenges on the how, and procurement unlocks this puzzle.
Two industry case studies, the Outer Ring Road project and the East Perth Common Ground project from Western Australia. These case studies provide insights into the key success factors
challenges encountered and recommended procurement practices for future initiatives.
One of the project outcomes was the development of a suite of clauses, model clauses that we can put into our contracts, which would then obligate our contractors to have a real close look at embodied carbon emissions during the works.
We're not only delivering on the immediate outcomes, but also demonstrating our more broader strategic outcomes, such as reducing embodied carbon whilst procuring other services, and particularly in the built environment. Through my experience in working with Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre, the research projects are well considered, highly collaborative, and deliver within a short 18-month window to take problem solving for real-world applications through to achievable practical outcomes. And I'm pleased to be a contributor and a partner working with the Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre over the many years that I have.